Agent of Foxglove Ingobnito by Lark Sabre. Read by Lark Sabre. Chapter 21. Lunch at Lefty's Part 2. Lefty smacked his lips with his triangular tongue and led the way. His fatberg hovel had saloon-type doors, which appeared to be the preferred style, indeed the only style of door in Little Wifferley, apart from wobbly bricks. It made sense, as Little Wifferley did have a bit of a Wild West vibe. Goblins didn't much care about privacy. Their lies chaotically spilled out into the main thoroughfare of Little Wifferley. Hunter wondered how different goblin lives might have been were they still residents of verdant medieval forests. They could have evolved into arboreal cuties like shaven wingless fruit bats. He couldn't help feeling a little guilty as a humoke about what human flourishing had meant for other species. It turns out it wasn't just bumblebees and big cats and coral reefs human success threatened to send the way of the mammoth and the dodo, but also creatures of folklore it transpired did exist after all, but who were now relegated to the shadows and edgelands of human civilization. Inside, Lefty's hovel was rowdy, cluttered, and slovenly, which came as no surprise to Hunter. It was a microcosm of Little Wifferley itself. A goblin girl with prematurely thinning hair in ratty bunches was playing with what looked like a goblin rag doll. On closer inspection, the doll appeared to have been cobbled together with some dexterity and folkcraft from human trash flushed down the toilet. It had used cotton bud arms, used dental floss hair, and some sort of soft cotton tube with a string for a body, like a small white party popper. Hunter couldn't fathom what this last item had been up there in the human world. Down here, it was the doll part. The doll's head was a plastic sphere, snapped off from a rim block toilet freshener affixed to the mysterious cotton tube. A smiley face crudely sketched upon it with, you guessed it, some unpleasant mucal green substance, the less said about which, the better. "That's my little girl, Princess Ooze," said Lefty proudly. "And this gorgeous slime ball is my old lady, Loretta. Say, how's you doing to Joey Pumpkins, Loretta? He's a new co-worker of mine down your brother's, artisanal fatberg upcycling studio." Lefty gestured to an obese she-goblin sitting on a stool, which had formerly been the screw-top lid of a bottle of toilet bleach, holding a bawling Gambino in a tatty pale blue gown. Loretta, for it was she, was the spitting image of Boss Brasco, except she wore the neon lime green lipstick that was par for the course for she-gobs. She could have been the Don of Little Wifferley's sister, and there was good reason for this likeness. She was the Don of Little Wifferley's sister. "Hey, Joey, nice to meet yous. Lefty ain't been able to keep his big kazoo shut about you in the big city since he met you. He says you're working for my brother now, with Lefty and the crew at La Capra Nostra. Lefty keeps pretending it's an artisanal fatberg upcycling studio in front of the Campinos. But they ain't dum-dums, and I ain't neither. A gob's gotta do what a gob's gotta do, eh?" Loretta said in a gravelly yet understated baritone instantly familiar to Hunter. She even heh-heh like her brother. "I'm gonna get them gobsnot pizzas out of the stove. Yous like gobsnot pizza, Joey? Here, Lefty, take your son." Loretta shoved the Gambino in the washed-out blue gown into the umber embrace of his father's arms. Loretta got up and waddled in the inimitable Brasco mode to the back of the hovel, where a smoky stove was busy incinerating some already inedible goblin cuisine. As soon as she turned her stout back, Lefty put his son on the floor and rolled his gimlet eyes, not wanting his gobbo machismo diminished in front of his new pal, Crazy Joey Pumpkins from the big city. Loretta brought in 2 large, mostly charcoaled gobsnot pizzas, and Hunter, Princess Ooze, Lefty, and Loretta sat around a rickety table, the same kind as Hunter had seen at La Gobra Nostra. Maybe this furniture was a wedding or anniversary present from Lefty's brother-in-law and boss. It wasn't much of a present, though, it had to be said. The table's legs were used human toothpicks, and the tabletop was a jam jar lid held in place with the adhesive old folks used to keep their false teeth glued to their gums. By now, his sightseeing in Little Wifferley had informed him that humans flush any old bathroom products down the lab, including, it would seem, denture glue, but his young mind boggled as to who flushed jam jar lids down the toilet. They remembered that Gerrit was once discovered tipping Lego minifigs down the bog, so perhaps jam jar lids weren't that much of a stretch. The indefatigably cheerful Lego man from the Lego movie, Emmett Brokowski, didn't look that upbeat floating in the hobby's toilet, the boy recalled. Loretta put the stomach-churning pizzas on the jam jar lid and denture paste table, then glared at Lefty, mustering nearly as much menace in a glare as her brother was capable of. She pointedly picked Lonnie up off the floor and bounced him up and down on her pudgy, sallow knee, whilst Hunter and the Lucinos prepared to eat. It was then that Hunter had a stark, surprise ice cube down the back of your Shrek t-shirt realization, a realization which would blow his cover there and then. His famous $3.99 mask, his passport to the world of undercover agentry, didn't have a mouth hole. It had 2 nostril holes so he could breathe and 2 eye slits so he could see, but there was no need for a mouth hole because, well, it was rightly assumed by the manufacturers, Mr. Morrison and Co., that the trick-or-treating kid would remove his goblin mask before tucking into his sweet, sweet stash. It hadn't been a problem in the Gobra Nostra, as Hunter had been discreetly tipping his bog waters under the table, but now he was expected to chow down on some gobsnot pizza right in front of his hosts, the Lucino clan. The food looked far from appetizing, but he was at least prepared to make a show of taking a bite, given that so much was at stake with the Gobverter nearly operational. But his mask would scupper this dutiful self-sacrifice of his taste buds. Lefty, Loretta, and Princess Ooze were already on their second slices. Lefty looked up at his guest and noticed Hunter's gobsnot pizza remained untouched.
Everything all right there, Joey? Loretta's a gobtastico cook, ain't she? You know, food and family's like a religion to us gobos and little Whiffley. Eating my old lady's home cooking is like vouching for someone. Why I vouch for yous to the boss. It's life and death, Joey. I wouldn't want some mooglin coming to my hovel and insulting my wife's cooking. It'd bring dishonor down on my rep. Capiche?
Oh, definitely, capiche, but I'm afraid I'm not that hungry, Lefty, stammered Hunter, groping around for a lifeline lie. Lefty's squinty eyes widened with ensuing indignation, outrage even. His flared nostrils flared even more, and he bared his gobsnot-festooned razorous teeth, the golden bullet canine glinting in the bogsy half-light. Hunter thought Lefty's nostrils might flare so much that they'd turn inside out, and Lefty would be snorted up his own nostrils, like an Ouroboros eating its own tail. Loretta also turned around and glared the infamous Brasco family glare at Hunter, the same one she'd aimed at Lefty for dumping Lonnie on the floor, but the contempt was tenfold this time. How dare an invited guest snub her signature gobsnot pizza? Even Princess Ooze looked like she was going to jump onto the jam jar table and bite Hunter on his plastic Godber conch, which would definitely give the game away. Walloping Will-o'-the-Wisps, Lefty wasn't kidding. Gobbers take their food very seriously, even though it is technically disgusting. Think, Hunter, think. Come on, my child's overactive imagination. Get me out of this one. And then the perfect excuse did occur to him. It was a life-saving light bulb moment, a eureka of untruth, and just about goblin-y and grody enough to work. Well, Lefty, it's like this. Remember I told you I was scouting about for fairies before we met up at Braddock's Meadow? Well, I lied to you, and did indeed stumble upon some of those Tinkerbells, having a picnic. I couldn't help myself, being Crazy Joe Pumpkins and all, and I ate them all. Yes, I ate 4, 5, 6 fairies, 3 adults, and 3 tender young fairlings. They were gobella, but I'm afraid I'm totally stuffed now. My apologies to you and your good lady wife, but I didn't want to come across as too much of a gobby-gabone who's ruined his appetite already. It's a shame, as gobsnot pizza's my favourite, and Loretta's only partially burnt offering looks just like the pizzas my mama used to make. Right, thought Hunter, there goes, excuse of the century. He then proceeded to try and fake a burp as the coda to the excuse of the century, though it came out as a bit feeble. Lefty gazed intently, ambiguously, inscrutably at Hunter for what seemed like an eternity, then erupted, mercifully, into the jagged peal of cackles Hunter had grown so accustomed to over the past 24 hours.
What did I tell you, Loretta? This guy's crazy. Total psycho gobbo. Reminds me of me in my younger days when I had an iron stomach too. Bet them Tinkerbells didn't know what hit 'em. Lucky you had my spare Bogsy, eh? So they couldn't turn you into one of them hodgehog spiny rats like old Gooey. What a stand-up gob.
Following Lefty's lead, both Loretta and Princess Ooze started herring and gobbo giggling along too. Before Hunter knew what was going on, the Lucinos were in collective hysterics over Hunter's false confession to being a F.O.X.G.L.O.V.E, the dictionary term for the kind of inhuman urchin who chomps up little winged folk like some saber-tooth of the hedgerows. The moment of unhinged goblin hilarity passed, and Hunter's fictitious spoiling of his appetite was forgiven. As Loretta cleared the table, that is, took the plates over to the kitchen area of the hovel and threw them into a pot of something slimy or slime adjacent, Lefty held forth on goblin history, his favourite subject, after reminiscing on his F.O.X.G.L.O.V.E salad days, though he would quite contentedly gobble fairies without a side of greenery. Badgering Hunter for an invite to the big city came a strong third.
You gobbly know this already, Joey, but the golden age of goblins was when King Ardbin founded the 5 families. Ardbin and Oberon was brothers. I'm sure you remembered that from Gambino school. But Oberon went loco with jealousy over Ardbin's good looks and transformed his brother into a goblin, which meant he couldn't use his wand no more. I don't know why Oberon made his brother a goblin when goblins is all Grendel Greedos next to them wimpy Finkerbells, but some old-timer fairy scribe must have written this all down before us gobbles and the Finkerbells went their separate ways. So he gobbly wanted to make the fairies the pretty boys in this picture. Forget about it. Ardbin then had 5 sons who each carved out a turf in one of the forests in the old country, which in those days the F.O.X.G.L.O.V.E ain't all cut down. But after them F.O.X.G.L.O.V.E took over and trashed the place, the 5 families all went underground. We don't meet up like in the old days, when King Ardbin was the boss of bosses and set up the Gob Mission, which was the big powwow, where the 5 families talked about this thing of ours, the artisanal fatbag recycling studio business, you know?
Lefty winked the most unsubtle wink imaginable at Hunter, screwing up his entire face on one side, after he deployed his long-winded code word to obscure what the Mobilino's true trade was from the impressionable bat ears of his Gambinos. Are you taking a cut from every goblet of bog water served, every piece of F.O.X.G.L.O.V.E trash scavenged, from the winnings of every card game won, and every Bogsy still produced in the counter-magic skunkworks of the sigil-hovel, not to mention the fairy dust thieving and God knows what other crime pies Boss Brasco had his tubby talons in? Lefty finished off his oral tour of the birth of goblin racketeering.
Bugsy Sigil told me all this. He was a Gambino in the dying days of the Gob Mission. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you know which family your big city crew used to be part of, Joey?
Lefty had been holding forth with his amateur historian shtick for so long that Hunter had started to doze off like his dad did in the armchair after a day at the office, minus a goblin mask, of course. The goblin mask was quite handy in this regard, as the eyes were painted on, and always looked like they were open, rather like those joke glasses inattentive students wore in comics like the Beano, to conceal illicit napping. Perhaps Hunter's dad should take an office worker mask with painted eyes to work, in case he wanted to catch a sneaky power nap. None of the Godbers had ever noticed Joe Pumpkins never blinked, which was weird, but goblins didn't seem sticklers for fine details, despite being suspicious by nature, though they could surprise you with flashes of shrewdness and inconsistent curiosity. Case in point. What now? Murmured Hunter cluelessly, bestirred by the dawning awareness of a question hanging in the air like a sword over his head.
The last 5 families. Which one did you's big city wise gups used to be part of?
Asked Lefty insistently, the amateur historian bit between his gobsnot-tinged teeth now. Oh, the lost 5 families, right. You mean the lost goblin 5 families, capiche? Well, now let me think. We used to be part of, that is to say, our ancestors were, wait, it's coming back to me, tip of the tongue time, the Gobstopperonis. Our family name used to be the Gobstopperoni crew, hemmed and hawed Hunter, shaking off the cobwebs whilst weak inspiration hit, or should that be gobwebs?
Gobstopperoni? I ain't never heard of that branch,
answered Lefty perplexedly. Well, you wouldn't have done, would you, Left? They're the lost 5 families after all, was Hunter's triumphant touche.
Bada king, bada gooly. You got me there, Joey. Forget about it,
Lefty replied in good humour. Ho, downing hobgoblins. Lefty's not half blathering on. I want to go home and rescue Jerop. Make sure he hasn't got green fly crawling all over him or something, even though it is November. You could still have ants. They don't freeze in the autumn, being underground and all, just like Godbers. I at least hope this history lesson is useful to Foxglove, even if I think it's even more mid than watching Mum's cookery shows. Yawn. Thinking of Foxglove, Hunter automatically checked for the presence of the invisible walkie-talkie in his blue camo trouser pocket under the jam jar lid and denture paste goblin table. He was in for another ice cube down the back of his Shrek t-shirt, jolt of panic. It wasn't there. He couldn't feel the invisible walkie-talkie in his pocket at all. Levitating leprechauns, lunch at Lefty's was turning out to be one disaster after another.